Sorry, I'm a guitar player, not a piano player. Hi, my name is Eric Anzalone, and this is What Matters Most. Today we are once again in Media, Pennsylvania at the Media Music Studio. And Mike Gibbons has been nice enough to open up his doors to us once more. Today, our guest is Richard Flook, the creator of Advanced Clearing Energetics, also known as ACE or ACE. He's the author of the book, Why Am I Sick? So, let's go talk to Richard. After losing his mother to breast cancer when he was a child, Richard always felt a deep compulsion to find answers as to why disease occurs and how we actually heal. This led him on a journey to discover the root causes of illness and finally find the answer as to the question, why do we get sick? He teaches this groundbreaking technique around the world, both live and online. And today, he's here live all the way from Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Richard.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm very good. Thank
Great, great. Before we get right into the whole nitty-gritty of ACE, Advanced
Clearing
Energetics,
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how you were inspired, or going back. Does go back to your mother.
Yeah, when I was 6, I've got two older brothers. An older brother and a younger brother, and basically we were all called up to my parents' bedroom and asked to go in one by one. And she basically sat there and told us individually that she was leaving my father, and she left. And I, from that day, just went, why? It was a complete shock to me. And then she moved a long distance away. And that was, what the hell's going on? This most important person in my whole entire life at that age, that was a stable part of it, disappeared. And I didn't quite know what to do, obviously. And over a period of time, she found out that she had breast cancer, and then she fought that. She was a physiotherapist. She worked in a hospital, and the outcome was that she had the breast removed. And basically, the last I heard was that we went and saw her, and then she died 6 months later.
So you actually lost your mother twice almost, it sounds like. She went
Absolutely.
away and then she went away.
Exactly. And I remember distinctly the day when that happened was that I said, when I found out, my dad actually walked into the room, sat on the end of my bed and said, he couldn't even look me in the eye, and said, look, Richard, your mum died last night. And I was just...
How old were you?
12 by that time. So she'd really fought it. She fought it for about 3 years. And I remember distinctly at school just saying, damn it, I'm going to find an answer to why did she get sick. And that drove me, literally from that time, to find out answers. I looked into all these different therapeutic interventions and everything.
Starting at the age of 12?
Yeah, I was looking into all of that, and I would watch documentaries. I remember Interferon. Anybody remember Interferon?
Oh, yeah.
And it's, they finally found an answer to this, that they can, but where did that go? And after a while, I just gave up. I just couldn't.
Right, because didn't you work in the wine industry or something?
Yeah, I went into the wine industry. I was very successful in the wine industry, but that drive was always there, and it kept coming back over and over and over again.
In your course of learning about this, you went through different, you studied NLP, which is...
Neuro-linguistic programming. Most people will understand that in a different way, but it's a way of understanding the brain and language and how we then behave.
And what other technique?
Hypnotherapy, timeline therapy. I studied Meta Medicine. And
what's Meta Medicine?
Meta Medicine is literally understanding how shocks cause certain diseases. And I was involved in that for a long, long time before I then suddenly discovered there were other things going on, and that then led me on to develop.
Right, and the shocks that cause other diseases. Now we're getting into the ACE, right?
Yeah.
Do you refer to it as ACE, or do you say ACE?
My students call it ACE, but basically it's Advanced Clearing Energetics. The acronym is ACE.
Yeah. So then, now explain what that is.
Basically, it is how specific stressful events cause certain diseases, and then how to transform that basic pain into learning. And that's what it is. So we're looking at the underlying energy and understanding how that energy has occurred, the pattern that's played inside a person's life, and then we go back and we clear that out. And then what happens then is the body heals itself.
Wow, how does one stumble upon that? Was this already there? Was this something you helped create, or was the
It's a culmination.
The concept there? Or?
Well, after leaving the wine trade, I got involved with all these other types of interventions. And I kept working with clients, and I would work, and the promise of them was that that client would get better, but it didn't work. It kept, sometimes it worked, but other times it just didn't. And I kept pursuing.
What kind of
NLP,
techniques were you using? Oh, the NLP, the hypnosis.
And it was great, and it really worked, but I wanted something whereby it was simple and easy, and it could be done in, say, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And it was something whereby a client could come in and say, I've got this problem, and just help me get rid of it. I don't want to take drugs, I don't want to have surgery, and I don't want to do any of these other things. What I want to get well, and I can't take the surgery and the drugs and everything else because I've already done that, or I found that they're not working.
Yeah.
And that's what drove me. I mean, I wanted to find solutions that were quick, fast, so a client or a person could just get better and be relieved of basically the energetic stuff that was causing the disease to occur in the first place.
But you're saying now, I'm just trying to understand this, it all goes back to this original shock? Or?
Yeah. What I found through a lot of research was that there is a shock. There is a unique type of shock that occurs, which we can put into an acronym. It has to be unexpected, has to be very dramatic, has to isolate the person, and they have to have no strategy for dealing with it. That's what causes...
UDIs?
No, a UDIN.
A UDIN?
Yeah. Or you could put another way, you could an I done.
Oh, okay.
Which is quite funny if you're English, but anyway. Like I done it or something. Because basically you've created this. And from my point of view, we look at it that you as an individual are in a situation because there's something underlying that's caused that problem to occur. And basically these shocks that we get have occurred at a specific time in our lives because we are almost predestined to have it. And that's basically what ACE is all about.
And then so what you're saying, now tying it back to your mother and the shocks that you had losing your mother.
Yeah.
You have things in your life that you can tie back to that?
Yeah, I have. I've solved a lot of them. Mm-hmm. I've had various issues and that have occurred in my life, but also I was able to work out why did my mother get her breast cancer.
Right, okay.
And that was because of this literally being ripped away, her children being ripped away from her breast. And basically any woman will tell you that the breast is it's a nurturing part of that. And so I was able to work out exactly what type of disease, how it occurred, and when it basically started.
And it could be disease. It could also be way you deal with stress. Is it run the whole spectrum?
Yes, it will do the whole spectrum. My focus, though, is on disease, is on pain, it's on depression, on mania, on schizophrenia, or any of those types of things. Bipolar disorder is known as now. And I'm looking at basically what is the body doing? How come the body created this? You see, from my point of view, the body has not made a mistake. There's no error. The body has done something, created this problem for a specific reason. And the answer comes from understanding that it's about trapped energy, that there was a shock that made that occur in the first place. And then once we go and find that shock, then we can unravel how that has occurred and go back in time and clear out the underlying reason why it was there in the first place. So essentially the body is like a roadmap. I think that's a fantastic way of saying it. And the body is like a roadmap that leads us to understand what that shock is.
But the body itself is just a physical part of the roadmap. The roadmap, isn't it our genes? Isn't it our DNA, our genetics?
Well, the interesting thing about genes is what makes genes switch on, not so much switch on and off or express themselves, are environmental conditions and also personal situations whereby we've had an argument or which most people can relate to, or something shocking has occurred to us as an individual, and through an environmental situation or a personal situation, and then the body goes to work basically to create an ailment, an issue, a pain, a psychological disorder. And my work is basically unraveling all of that, finding out what that shock was, because I know that certain parts of the body create these diseases for a reason. Essentially, they are doing something for a specific reason, and with that knowledge, we can work back from it and then clear that out. Clear out that trapped energy, clear out the reason why the gene was expressing itself in that way. So essentially, we stop the gene expression, we stop it switching on and changing why that person created that disease in the first place.
Now, because this runs the full spectrum, actually we have a couple here in the audience today, which sort of does run the spectrum. So let's go talk to them real quick.
Okay.
Okay. I recognize Carrie.
Yes.
Yes, from Karin Davidson's show.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Carrie, who are you here with today?
This is my fiance, Chris.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
You have both done some work with Richard, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Who was first?
I was first.
Okay. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. I had been working on clinical depression with Karin Davidson as an EFT practitioner, and Richard had come down to the States to film like a training video, and I was there because I was working for her also, and I was able to work with him to pinpoint some of the specific events that were playing into the clinical depression, so that I would know what events needed to be cleared in order to be done with it, kind of once and for all.
Okay, and how did then, Chris, how did you get involved with ACE?
Well, through dating Carrie.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of our relationship, I mean, I suppose some people go out to the movies for a date, but Carrie said, "You know what? Come down. We have this video shoot.
We're gonna clear some energy.
And I want you to meet this really cool guy, Richard Flook." And Richard worked with me with. I had a recurring problem in my right shoulder that I attributed from, well, it occurred as an athlete playing hockey, but it would not go away. And Richard worked with me to clear the energy in my shoulder and my pain.
Right, so here we see that clearing, energy clearing works for like mental and mental health, and also for physical health. Huh?
Yes.
And he was the biggest skeptic ever. He was like, "This is dumb, and I don't believe it, and I don't want to."
Really?
And I was like, "Just try it."
So what made you, then what was the breakthrough where you went, whoa, this is working?
Well, as we worked through the session, Richard was able to pinpoint a few negative experiences in my life that occurred around the same time as the injury, and he worked me through some of those emotions, and the proof is in the pudding. Where it's been probably about 2 years since that.
2 or 3.
2 or 3 years since that video shoot, and since I met Richard, and I haven't had pain since.
Wow, fantastic. And there's such good energy between the two of you too. I mean, seriously. Look, you guys are engaged.
No, I would tell you, if it didn't work, we wouldn't be engaged.
Right. Right, exactly. So that ring right there proves that ACE works. It does. That's fabulous. Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for sharing.
You.
All right. Wow. Look at that. We have a couple that got engaged from brought together by this energy clearing.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that amazing?
We're all connected.
Yeah, at some level.
But now, what you were saying about everything and what Chris was saying, like he had an injury, like a hockey injury from hockey. You know, I had an experience with hockey last Christmas. I was playing hockey with some friends, and I haven't played hockey in years. So I'm out there for an hour and a half. I mean, we were really playing hockey. You know, I sat down, relaxed, had a beer, and I started going, oh, that was a mistake. And the next morning, on Christmas morning, I mean, I could barely walk.
Right.
Now, that had nothing to do with a trigger so much as me just body checking some guy, right?
Okay.
So that was an actual physical trigger, or was it not? Or was my body just predisposed because of the way my map works, where I would be in pain, but I think anyone would be, right?
Anyone is going to go into pain if they've been pushing their muscles for any length of time. The bodybuilders know this. So what they basically do is they push their muscles and stress their muscles. The next time they need to rest, and then the muscles rebuild. And as they rebuild, they're painful. It's the same with you. You stressed your body, and basically after that, then the body heals itself. So what basically happens with this Yudin moment that we were talking about, the body goes into stress, it goes to work. And while it's working, there is no pain. You feel actually quite good. And exactly like you felt on the hockey rink. You know, 1.5 hours out there playing serious hockey is a long time. Yeah. And then what happens is when you rest, the body goes into pain and it heals itself. And this is really important to understand, because explains something that we all understand about disease, is that essentially there is a time before the disease occurs, which we are not often aware of, but that's a stressful time. And then following that stressful time, we get this restful time. And this restful time is the time then when we end up going to the doctors, we end up taking some drugs, we end up doing something to alter that. But essentially, that's not how disease occurs, or the first thing that causes a disease to occur is this Yudin moment, this stressful event. But we're predisposed to have that stressful event anyway. And that's the interesting stuff around AIDS.
Right, like I have lower back issues.
Right, okay.
Now, and it runs in my family.
Yeah, there we go. There's that predisposition.
Right, so I'm predisposed, but you're saying there was a trigger too, that or there are triggers that continue to trigger those triggers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of triggering going on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So my lower back, like another person who was in my situation, let's say, they might not have a back problem because they weren't predisposed to have it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, essentially the epigenetics, the genes are switching on through environmental conditions because you're predisposed from an event that occurred maybe in your father, or it could down your mother's line, or even further and further back. And also we know now through ACE that it could have even gone back even way, way further. And then what we can do is we can go and use some very, very cool techniques, which I modeled from miraculous healers, to go in and bring down some very cool energy and clear out the whole imprint that caused that to occur. So essentially what happens is that we go back, clear all of that out, and then the body just goes and heals itself and completes the healing, and then you don't repeat that pattern again and again and again, which is what we saw with Chris.
Right, exactly. But so you're saying that I'm Italian.
Yeah.
So if you can go back and read my heritage and see all the problems that these Italians have.
Yeah, we could actually find it.
Right, well, then you help me, and then the rest of my Italian brothers and sisters are going to keep having to deal with it. But you fixed it for me because you knew where it was.
Well, we also know energetically that it could actually pass all the way down through them as well. But let's say you came to see me and said, I get this reoccurring back problem, and I keep repeating it, and I don't know why. And my answer will be, I know because there's a metaphor inside your body that keeps repeating. It's on one particular side, and we know a little bit about that. Then we can find out about what's going on. There's trapped energy here. We also know that the heart's involved, and the brain's involved, and the guts are involved as well, because they're all areas of energy that hold all this information. And so what we do is to go to all those areas, find out what the underlying energy is, ask what that energy is, and we go back in time and then clear out the imprint that caused it to occur. And the crazy thing is, we don't have to find out about your Italian heritage. We don't need to go off and do loads and loads of theory and understand about it. We're just clearing out energy.
But I know, but you've actually done studies, or
Oh,
currently you're doing this on whole races of people, or
Well, basically epigenetics is fully understood in the fact that what happens, or what's, for example, the Afro-Caribbean people who come over on the slave trade, and also let's say the Jewish people. They've been able to find out that there are certain diseases that keep reoccurring in those particular communities that they can directly attribute to the slave trade and to the Holocaust. And these are all linked up epigenetically, and that's all the science behind all of this. A great guy called Dr. Bruce Lipton, wrote a book called Biology of Belief, fantastic book. And he actually talks about this, and there's a whole chapter in his book about that.
Do you think then there's a whole generation now of people, because I remember on 9/11, I was at Disney World, the happiest place on earth of all places that day. It was such irony. But my daughter at the time was 3. And I remember we went back to the condo we rented, and we had a big widescreen TV, and my daughter was upset that we had to leave Disney, so she was just playing with her little Disney figurines in front of this screen where the whole world was falling apart. It was like she didn't notice it, but I know on some level she did. So I'm wondering now, is this whole generation of children going to be imprinted now because of an event like 9/11?
Absolutely. I'm English, as you can tell. We're imprinted by...
Really? You're kidding me.
No. I've lived in Canada for 5 years, but essentially, we lived through all of that ourselves, and we had the threat of nuclear bombs coming over. We had things like the IRA just about to bomb us all the time.
You also had the Americans kicking your butt.
I suppose in various things. But so living under that fear, yes. But would a shock like that affect some people? Yes, it would. Now, this is the difference. Was it a Yudin moment, or was it basically just general stress? Because we can live under stress. People do at work. They get up every morning. They drink gallons of coffee. They kick the cat, the dog. They go outside, and get in the car, and they fight the traffic. Fine. Do they get a disease? No. What causes a disease is when they come home and their partner turns around and says, sit down, and then they turn around and say, I've been sleeping with your best friend. And then, totally unexpected, let's say that they didn't know, dramatic, isolates them, no strategy. Now, working with people like that, what I've been able to find is they have that predisposition. And we find out that their parents also had a similar problem, but they may have stayed together. And then we find out that their grandparents did something similar. And then we find out that perhaps actually there was an abandoned child or something else occurred. And we go out and clear out the underlying energy. And then that whole problem disappears, because essentially from those types of events, people can get breast cancers, they can get other sort of issues, or they can end up with an irritable bowel syndrome or severe eczema or something horrible which they can't then solve.
This is kind of like letting it get under your skin to a whole new level,
right? Yeah.
Or keeping something, cooped up that needs to let go. It just festers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the problem. If we hold on to that stuff and don't let it go, it can eventually create a disease.
And what you're talking about, this clearing, it's not some sort of mumbo jumbo. You're actually talking about physically clearing this energy.
Yeah, we physically clear the energy. And what's also great about it is we can actually now prove it all mathematically. And people say, well, what's great about mathematics? And essentially, mathematics gives us, leads on to the science, which then leads on to eventually perhaps medicine catching up maybe 20, 30 years later. But essentially the mathematics is there, and we know that the stuff that we're actually doing is all real. And before, because I'm a real skeptic on all this stuff, but now starting to piece all of this stuff together and taking the now 20 years of work with people that I've done, putting it all together, I've been able to come up with a system that's simple, easy, quick, and fast that anybody really can do, and it helps people heal themselves. That's it.
If we had more experience with energy clearing like this, we'd probably need less medicines and whatnot, right? Because wouldn't you say that we'd be a lot healthier with all these medications?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that people are taking medication unnecessarily in many, many cases.
Does the medication, when you're working with somebody, do you tell them? I'm sure people come to you, they're taking medicines already. Do you tell them to stop, or does
I can't do that.
Does the medicine get involved though? If they're taking drugs for depression and then you're trying to treat it, aren't the drugs kind of getting in the way of the...
I always refer the clients back to their medical practitioners and basically say to them, you have to deal with that. I cannot say anything whatsoever. because otherwise I'd end up in the court of law. And quite rightly so. I'm not a person that knows about these drugs. I mean, I have studied them, and I have pharmacists that work with me. But most of my practitioners and myself, I'm not a licensed practitioner. I can't even go there. However, what the clients tend to do is that they feel so much better that they start dropping these drugs off, and I say, no way. You go and see your clinical practitioner and you get that sorted, and what happens is, as we saw with Kari, is that they can come off their medication and be completely free of that. And that's basically what's a lot of people have experienced, and especially like pain medication, which they can get addicted to it. So it's that type of thing. Yes, certainly it helps. Medication has its area, and if we can release the underlying trapped energy, then the medication is no longer required in the same sort of way that it was before. I've got to be careful with my language there.
Yeah,
for these reasons.
that's okay. I got you. So what matters most to you? Name of the show. We like to ask our guests that when all is said and done, and your energy has gone elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
What was your lasting imprint? What do you think is most important that you leave here?
That this stuff actually gets out into the world. It's our God-given right that we know how the body actually functions. People know intuitively, but now we have everything that we can piece all this together, and we've got such fast and simple techniques that I want it to be their first port of call. That's what I want, and I want it to be out there in the world.
Richard Flook is a man who was inspired by his own personal loss to challenge a current belief system. Through the diligent perseverance and belief, he ultimately answered the question, why am I sick? And rocked the world. You rocked my world today, I'm telling you, man. Your dedication in creating a better tomorrow reminds us all, once again, it's the simple things in life that matter most.